by way of introduction, my name is Claire. As Gishan mentioned, I am the UNSW Google Developer Student Club lead, and we have 4 amazing cool tech beans who will be a part of the panel discussion today. And they will be answering the questions you guys submitted on the Q&A form, as well as any on-the-spot questions, which will be at the very end. So to kick things off, how about we start off with a round of brief introductions?
Want me to start?
Absolutely.
Okay. Can you guys hear me? Is the mic on? Okay. Hi, my name is Kartik. I'm an Android developer, working for the past 3.5 years or so. And I worked across multiple clients, multiple industries, mostly in the industries where tech is not their product. So I help such companies make a good tech product while they focus on their own thing. For example, airlines, insurance, etc., etc. We were just discussing fun facts. So my fun fact is that I also play music. I play the drums. So there you go.
Nailed it. Hi, my name's Katharine. I'm a software engineer at Simply Wall Street, which is a platform for retail investors to help them do their research. I'm mostly a back-end developer, sometimes a front-end developer. And my fun fact is that before I was doing this, I almost became a designer.
Ooh.
But yeah, not anymore. But these days, I still draw a lot of graphics.
Nice. Hey, everyone. Oh, how do I get this working?
Tech support.
Tech support. No, we're good. We're good. Okay, so my name's Pamela. I head up talent at Harrison.ai. I've got just over 10 years experience in recruitment, so feel free to fling us any recruitment questions. And I worked for Combank for a few years, Google, and now obviously my current role. And what I do at Harrison, we're actually creating AI software to help scale medical predictions globally. So we've got AI software in IVF, in the radiology space, medical imaging, and also in pathology. And it's a scale-up. Over to you, Eli. Oh yeah, my fun fact, gosh. My fun fact, so I'm a really big fan of Game of Thrones, so much so that when I had my son, who's now 6, I was like, oh my God, what do I name him? And I named him Jon after Jon Snow, because I thought, if you want a good-looking kid, you got to pick a good-looking name. And from my sample size of 1, it works, everybody.
Morning, my name is Eli. I have been invited to be a guest speaker here. I don't know why, but I've been in technical recruitment all my life, essentially. That's for the past 10 years. And I started an agency, so agency recruitment, and then moved into a startup, scale-up consultancy business. And then after that, I moved into a startup, scale-up unicorn company in finance. And then my latest job at Atlassian, where you recruit software engineers and principal software engineers at the moment for back-end and front-end here in Sydney. Outside of that, I do career coaching for people like yourself who are either in tech or want to transition to tech outside of work as well. My fun fact is I speak 4 languages. Don't ask me which ones.
Which ones do you speak?
Russian, Korean, no, I'm joking. Turkish, Dutch, German, and English. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for the interesting round of introductions. We'll just kick off with the questions. So I guess the first question, I'll give it to Eli. Yep. So the question is, what career advice and actionable steps do you recommend for those who are looking to pivot into more technical roles, but who don't have like a technical background or experience?
Thank you. I would love to understand how many of you are in that situation right now, so I can give a bit more tailored answer. 1, 2, 3. Awesome, great. First of all, it's a very difficult journey that you're undertaking, but there's always light at the end if you don't give up. So what I always advise people who are in this situation is you need to understand what the skills are that are high in demand, right? And that's really hard because you have so much to choose from. So one way you could do that is basically to look at the jobs that you want to apply for, understand what kind of skills they're looking for, what kind of responsibilities they're looking for, and what are the hard requirements. This is going to give you some, like a North Star. Okay, now I know maybe what I have to upskill myself and where I can get my skills and what kind of experience do I need actually to get that job. Rather than, oh, I'm going to do this Udemy course, or I'm going to do this master, and then at the end of the day, you're like, I don't have the qualifications to get the job. That's one thing that you can do. The other thing that really worked for some of my clients is, like Gishan today mentioned, do whatever you can to prove that you have passion and that you're already doing the job that you want to do without having the experience. And this is through side projects. That was a really good tip. For instance, if you're like a data scientist or data engineer, get some data that you're quite passionate about, basketball data, football, whatever it is, and then just play around with it, build models, and then just publish them somewhere and then put them into your resume. That's a really, really good start.
Nice. Thank you for that. I guess next question is, can you share any tips for standing out during job interviews or the hiring process in, I guess, the tech field? And I guess we'll pass this question to Pam.
Yeah, and okay, so for standing out in the process, Gishan mentioned some awesome CV tips, and I think, obviously your CV is kind of your ticket to get an interview initially. So in terms of standing out, yes, we love to see side projects. We love to see that you have initiative and passion and all of that stuff. But when I look at a CV, the other things that stand out for me are, maybe you've listed some interests. So what else are you interested in outside of your day-to-day job? It can be a nice hook to build rapport with your interviewer. And also, you bring your whole self to work. So we want to hire people that are not just technically brilliant, sure, but also they're going to be great people to work with. And sometimes, your interest can be a really good way to flag that and stand out. I'm trying to also not highlight the tips that Gishan has already mentioned. The other thing is, I would definitely put your, if you're currently enrolled in, say, a Udemy course online, or you're currently completing a course in whatever it is at USyd or UNSW, and you haven't completed it yet, that's okay. Like, still list it on your CV and just put the due to completion date. It shows us that you've got a growth mindset, you're still trying to learn and upskill, and we love to see that. So don't be afraid to put stuff in there, even if you don't already have the certification or the qualified training done. Always list your education, I would say. So your university degree, put it on there. That can go to the bottom of your CV as you get to 10 years experience. Sure, not so relevant. In terms of your WAM from university, if you've got like a high credit distinction, put it on there. It looks great, and put it on the first page. If you've got a pass, you probably don't need to mention it. I would just put the degree that you've got, so you don't bias the person looking at your CV and focus more on the projects and things that your work experience. You don't need a formal degree to get a job in tech, okay? You just need good experience, project work, and ideally some good networks. So the other things that will help you stand out are really clear layout, white formatting, clear space. It's true. We look at a CV for 6 seconds, probably less. Sometimes I take 2. So the first page is really important. Do you need a one-pager? Actually, you don't. Ilya and I were just discussing it. That's probably more of a US-centric. We feel it's very much US-centric that it's come from, and the examples were like pretty US-centric. General guide, 2 to 3 pages. 1 to 3 is fine. If you've got under 5 years experience, like Gishan is right, you're probably going to be able to fit it all on 1 page. But when you get to like 10 years and so, it is fine to do like 2 pages. I would never go beyond 3. Even that's a little bit of a stretch. But 2's fine. 1 is good if you have under 5 years experience. That's fine, but you don't need to feel absolutely beholden to that. And then when it comes to standing out, like obviously, just really quickly, interviews. Really, really important. Before you get the interview though, you've got to stand out to the recruiter. So how do you do that? 1, if you are going to message us cold, that is fine to do on LinkedIn. Be aware, we get hundreds of these. So unfortunately, we can't get back to everyone. Don't take it personally. It is a numbers game when you apply to roles or when you message people. So keep a spreadsheet so you know what you've applied to, so that if you do get a call back, you know exactly what people are talking about and what role you applied to. But when you do reach out cold, statistically, you'll get a higher open rate if you put hi, first name in the subject line. People love their names, so use it more. And then they'll click open. And then when you write your message, don't give us an essay, give us 1 paragraph or 2 paragraphs. Make it easy for us. Don't just say, hi Pam, I'd love to work at Harrison.ai. Please look at my profile and help me out. Tell me what you think do you have anything for me? That's really lazy. Do the job for us. Hi Pam, I'd love to work for Harrison. Tell me a little bit about your why maybe. My dad is a doctor or is a radiologist, and I noticed you've got a product in this.
I'm keen for an internship or a graduate, whatever it is, what kind of role you want. Tell us where your experience is in software engineering. Would love to know if you might be open to, to sharing opportunities or keeping in touch or whatever it is you want, a call to action at the end. Keep it brief and you're more likely to get a response back. If you don't be disheartened, okay? Go for the hiring manager. So they usually get less direct people messaging them. So find who the hiring manager is. You can do that on LinkedIn very easily. Just type in engineering manager and whatever the name is of the company, or some variation of an engineering manager title. Be aware you've got to play around with the search strings because people put different titles on LinkedIn. So to find people, that's what you've got to do. Yeah, we're very stalkery. And finally, when you get the call with the recruiter, somebody asks a question before, who makes the decision? So you do have to impress the recruiter initially, or the hiring manager. Sometimes they do the first call if you've reached out direct. And to do that, make sure you answer the question directly. Keep it brief, keep it concise, but be personable. Be yourself. We're not robots. So sometimes people forget to smile, or a smile can be heard through the phone. Confidence can be heard. If you want to sound confident on the phone, you got to open up your diaphragm, and I would actually talk on the phone while pacing. Walk around, it does wonders for your confidence while you're on the phone, and you'll actually come across, even stand up, as a lot more confident over the phone, okay? It really adds to your presence. So yeah, you do have to kind of impress us, initially, but we're people at the end of the day. We just want to see that you have good communication skills on the phone, that you've got good motivations. I asked someone recently, why do you want to work for us at Harrison? They said, because I just want a remote role and you guys are remote. And I'm like, that's not going to cut it. So know your why. Try and make it personal to the company you're applying to and their product. Why are you interested? Give it a personal story and you will absolutely stand out. Way more I could say, but I'm taking up too much time.
I think that was a really, really elaborate response. I think key takeaways is passion, projects, and also just being confident and concise in your communications. I think those are really, really, really good tips. As for the next question, I'll give this to Katharine. The question is, how do you handle setbacks and failures in your career, and what lessons have you learned from them?
This is a really good question, I think, because I feel in every kind of job, any kind of role, and also software engineering, there's a lot of times when you feel you haven't been doing enough, or you do something and you break prod, for example. That's very... There are times when you go through that and you feel pressure, and you feel, I guess, stress. It's very common emotions. But I think failures and setbacks, I feel as I've been working a little bit more, I think a good way to look at them is that they're actually great opportunities for you to grow. So I think it's important that when these things happen, yes, you get a lot of these negative emotions, but it's actually a great opportunity for you to be learning, because when these things happen, you have to step outside your comfort zone to be kind of learning new things and fixing things, and that's experience you probably wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So I'd say one, look at it in a positive light as more of an opportunity. And I guess two is just to keep a growth mindset when you encounter these things. I feel that's really important as an engineer, because there's always new things to be learning, and I guess ways to improve. So if you keep being passionate and keep that growth mindset, I would say that's a really good way to just keep overcoming these things.
Yeah, for sure. I think to anything, even beyond software engineers, even the role as a GDSC lead, there's always going to be setbacks and ditches and stuff, but there are silver linings to every cloud. So yeah, definitely agree with that. Next question, go to Kartik. The question is, which tech skill do you think is important but not taught in uni, and how can we describe or demonstrate that in a CV?
That's a really difficult one. I have to think about it. Maybe conflict resolution, not just in terms of the software you're writing, but in terms of the people you interact with on a daily basis. Everyone has their own unique experiences, and from their experience, they kind of build this mentality that this is the right way of doing things. But often that's not. There are multiple ways of doing things. It's just that one solution might work better for your use case, but a separate solution might work better for a different use case. And then you got to respect that someone else's experience is also important, as important as yours. And then you kind of do a workshop, for lack of better words, where you would want to talk to the person, understand what they're saying, get the good points out of it, get the bad points as well, do the same thing with anyone else who has an opinion, and then gather all the data before making any decisions. And obviously you can't please everyone, so you have to accept that. You have to accept that somebody will get offended because you did not listen to them. Somebody will be very happy that, oh, you chose my solution and whatever. And that's part of life. That happens everywhere, not just in software solutions or software industry. And that is something uni doesn't teach us. At least in my experience, in my uni experience, people were just agreeing with what I was saying. Like, this is not how we do things. We need to discuss. We need to come up with an innovative solution, not just something off the shelf. But yeah, that's my opinion, if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. It does. Just like a follow-up for like the software engineers, this is more like from personal experiences, but a lot of our lecturers at, I don't know who goes UNSW here, but computer science has this course called 1521, and it's computer system fundamentals, and they keep on pressing to tell us that the MIPS assembly language is extremely valuable to know. Do you agree with that?
I have no idea what MIPS assembly is.
Okay. That says quite a bit.
I know what assembly is, I know what web assembly is, but I have no idea what MIPS assembly is.
Okay.
So I don't know how important that would be. Maybe because I'm an Android engineer, it doesn't apply to me. Maybe it's valid in some other industry.
Okay.
But yeah.
Katharine, have you heard of MIPS?
I think I have some friends who attended UNSW. I think I have heard of this course. And from what they said, I think MIPS is a very specific kind of, and not very relevant these days kind of thing, is it?
But isn't that most of the uni? Really specific and not relevant anymore?
Yeah.
Especially the first 2 years.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I feel like are not very, not particularly like industry specific. Yeah, very more academic.
Yes, but please study hard for MIPS, even though, you know, they don't know what it is. Okay, anyways, next question. I guess we'll pass this back to Eli. What is the number one do not do in the application process, which too many people do?
What do people do all the time? They write bad resumes, that's one. Even experienced people write terrible resumes, and you're like, no, that's one. Pestering the recruiter is not a good idea either. So I would not recommend that. I've sent my application and now I'm like chasing you to get back to me. Writing a message on LinkedIn, email, all of that, it backfires. It's not a good impression. Are we like talking also like interviews and stuff, or is it more like just applying for a role?
Just the application process, so like your part of like the recruitment process,
okay.
yeah. So like what makes you go like, oh my God, like why did this person do this?
Yeah, okay. So nowadays, a lot of interviews are virtual, right? So via Zoom and Google Meets. So one thing I would recommend to you highly is have either a very clean background, a nice, sharp, everything is, you know, in its place, not messy. If you don't have that, if you have a messy room, have a background on. So just hide it, number one. You come to an interview, you want to be dressed appropriately, not in your underwear and your t-shirt and scruffy hair. It's an interview with a recruiter. You need to take that extremely serious because that's the gate to come into the company. If you don't make a good impression on the recruiter, you already lost the game because they could advocate for you in the company throughout the whole interview process, but you messed it up because your first impression was gone. If you come across, now this is very I guess, difficult because you need a job. If you come across very desperate and not confident, like Pam was saying, it's also not good because I interview so many people, they're in the same situation, and the other person is way more confident and way more, I guess, sure about themselves and what they can deliver on the job. That comes across way better in the conversation as well. So you don't want to be robotic in your answers. You want to be very natural. You want to answer the questions as naturally as possible, like I'm doing right now. I haven't rehearsed this. And if I don't know something, you just say, look, I haven't done this. If you are struggling in the interview, let's say like I'm struggling now with an answer, you could then say, it was a good question, but let me think about it for a second. Oh, yeah. If I still don't have something, can you please ask me another question? So don't freeze, because then your whole flow will go off and the interview will not go well for you. Because you only have one chance and you need to make it count,
Yeah, nice.
Nice.
Okay, well, the next question, I think it's like a bit of a discussion between Pam and Eli, but the question is, what is do tech startups have a similar application process or like expectation to large firms?
Okay.
Go first.
Well, I worked at Google and Combank, large, and also the scale-up, tech scale-up at the moment. And so because I came from that background, I have adapted the process. It's a lot faster with us. There are 3 stages, a technical interview, then some kind of coding sample task, and then a more behavioral, kind of like what Geshan mentioned, but in a different order. So yeah, it's a shorter process, but there's also usually like, at a larger company, you'll usually maybe just have one interviewer, but more stages, like one-on-one interviews. Whereas with us, we have like 2 interviewers per round. So we've still got full coverage of the team seeing someone and assessing quality, but just crammed it into less stages. And it's obviously not as long. But I think probably more interesting in terms, if I can just rephrase the question slightly, I do want to like kind of follow on from what Eli was saying in terms of interview tips. I feel like we focused a lot on the initial phase and CV. You guys should be pretty good across that. But some other things in interview. I can tell you the #1 interview mistake. Does anyone want to put their hand up and tell me what do they think this is? And I'm telling you, I see it all the time in experienced and non-experienced candidates coming through. What do you think is the #1 interview mistake?
Just shout it.
No, you're disqualified. But I am curious what you think after we hear from everybody else. What do you think is the most common interview mistake? Exaggeration? Yeah, look, it happens because you want to put your best foot forward and you are selling yourself in an interview. Obviously, don't oversell. As Geshan said, if you don't know it, say you don't know. But most crucially, if you don't know it, I don't know, but would you like me to tell you how I think I would approach this problem? Or, I don't know, but here's how I'd go about bridging that knowledge gap. I would do X, Y, Z, my own research, talk to the teammates, talk to the hiring manager, have one-on-one meetings, do all that stuff. But it's actually not over-exaggeration, although that does happen. That's a good one. Yep.
Would it be like making up an answer or trying to kind of, if you're not sure, just like what Sean was saying, like circling around and not really answering the direct question or saying?
Yeah, I'm gonna. That's very close. That'll be it. What do you think, Eli?
Talking too much?
Yeah, talking too much. That's literally it. Over talking. One word.
Self-awareness is missing.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you guys some really, a couple of quick tips to avoid over talking. Okay? 1, as soon as you feel like you have answered the question, stop talking. Just stop. That puts the onus back on the interviewer to fill the gap. Make it awkward. Who cares? Use silent pauses to your advantage because it makes you seem like you're in control. Good comms. People will listen. They will take the time to digest what you've just said, so you'll have more impact from your answer. And it just makes you come across as a much more fluent communicator with heaps of knowledge in reserve. Don't do verbal diarrhea, okay? So as soon as you feel like you've answered the question, you stop talking. Second tip, I've already said it, but embrace silent pauses. You can use this when you present to people. I'm using it now. So the more you can slow down, pause, show you have that control, you will come across very confident and competent, and that's what you want. I know I didn't quite answer your question, but but what do you think, Eli? What are some other tips for the interview process?
What was the question?
It was a bit of a comparison between like a tech startup
I remember.
Yeah. So do you think like the application process, well, it's probably not. but like, what's the main difference, do you think?
I would say, like, I'm working at Atlassian right now, and the process is quite long, whereas at a startup it's very short. You know, I could do an interview process for a candidate in 2 weeks, bam, done. Atlassian, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, depends, you know, depending on the role, so it's really long. Okay, we have time. The other thing is the assessment and criteria of a startup versus a corporate, like what we have in Atlassian, is very different. So you might have to fit into this box in this bigger company, whereas in the startup, we're looking for odd shapes, you know, that can fill the role and the company culture, etc., and maybe make the culture even better. Communication within the startup might be very different, and whereas, you know, Atlassian, you need to communicate in a way that's different than in a startup. What else is there?
That's a really good point. So, you know, in a larger organization, you've got a team, and which is great. I think if you're starting out, it's great to join a bigger team that you can learn from. In a startup scale-up, you generally have less of a team. Yeah. And so what we're looking for is a real self-starter, self-motivated. Most crucially, we are hiring for someone who can learn fast and is adaptable. So you deal with ambiguous situations well, and great problem-solving skills. We need that more than ever in a startup. And you will be wearing lots of different hats. So we look for that adaptability, that flexibility, how you deal with ambiguous scenarios. We'll ask you questions that are quite hypothetical. If this happened, what would you do? So, you know, that's probably a key difference. And also with larger organizations like the Google, for example, because they have so many people, they don't really care what technical, like, say, coding language you know. You can pretty much apply and you know, with any previous coding like language experience. Whereas at a startup, scale up, limited resources, you got to hit the ground running. We want you to know the coding language ideally, okay? So that's the thing, like, you've got to pay attention there to the required skills, because it's more important at a startup scale up that we get that hire right, because it's every hire counts.
Yeah, thank you so much for that response. I think just like another thing, this is more just in terms of company culture and like the environment. So as most people would know, like tech has an amazing culture and it's like a big space for like innovation. So what would you say is like the split or weighting between a cultural fit and technical abilities? And I think maybe Eli can take this one.
So situation is this. I have an amazing candidate, technically brilliant, right? He passed all the hiring technical rounds with the highest rating that you can get. And I'm stoked, right? Yes. I had a good maybe I had my reservations, but I thought it's a great candidate. Let's go, move forward. Passes the hiring manager meeting, which is a behavioral type of interview. Then comes the values interview, and then they did not do well. They are out of the process. So culture is king. If they don't fit into the culture, they will cause more problems than add value. So I would even, you know, that's why I would, you know, what they don't teach at uni, I would have said conflict is a really good one, really good, but also just soft skills, like how you actually communicate. And you know what I always say to my clients? I say to them, imagine the person that you're meeting today in the interview is a friend who is already at the company that you're working in. So it's like a colleague. So that gives me always also, I use this myself when I go to interviews. I know this guy, you know, I could be working with him tomorrow. So let's address it in that way. And that calms me. And that gives me better confidence in the interview. And yeah, that's really handy.
Yeah, so culture is king. we can remember that one line. Yes. Just like another question for Kartik and Katharine. In each of like your respective roles, like at Bilue and Simply Wall Street, how would you sort of describe your role within the team? So we know that sometimes there's projects where it's like employee-led or like manager-led. How would you sort of describe your role in the company?
You want to go first?
I was hoping you could go first.
I'll do that. Well, we're mostly a consultancy, and we don't have these things where we are leading things. We're working with clients. So they have their team of engineering managers and everything, and we come in at an advisory level as well as at the level where we're working with them. So it's like they trust us to do the right thing, and we have the autonomy to make the technical decisions, but not the business decisions in case vague example. We want to use this particular library, but they've got a license and it's a hefty license. So it's our job to come up to convince them to pay for it, but the ultimate decision is with them that, yeah, we want to pay for it or not. That being said, within Bilue itself, and like Eli said, culture is keen. We have this culture of fostering growth, of course. We want our juniors to become seniors as soon as possible, which means exposing them to more opportunities, exposing them to events like these, where they get an opportunity to attend, speak, share knowledge, build more confidence. And that is something that nobody is going to, or at least not at Bilue, nobody's going to come and ask you or force you to do it. It has to be something you take an initiative at a personal level. And Bilue is very supportive that way, that even though you are an employee or a client or a contractor at a separate company, you have these things which are meant for both your personal growth as well as career growth. So go do it. You need to take some time off from work to be able to do this. Don't do that. We let the clients know, don't worry about that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Katharine?
Yeah, so I used to work at a software consultancy as well, so I definitely agree with, like, I feel like a lot of the things you were saying there, especially about like personal growth. But I do think like one of the, like now I'm at Simply Wall Street, which is I guess like startup, scale up. One of the things that is still common though is that you are in charge of your personal growth still. I think that's probably like a good tip for anyone, that you should like take charge like as you're like kind of growing in your career. I think at Simply Wall Street, like my kind of role is probably more like still more product focused. So in a consultancy, you have like a lot of guidance from your client, but I guess like currently my role, sometimes like even as an engineer, it's good to have like more of like a product hat, I would say, like just thinking about different things like user experience and not just, you know, focusing on kind of like the technical execution. I guess as an engineer, you also, like a lot of your day is also still like communicating with people. There is like writing code, I'd say in a software consultancy as well, like a lot of like stakeholder management. You have to like work with your team. And yeah, I guess like that's one other thing, like with culture as well. You want to be able to like work like cohesively in your team.
If you don't mind, I want to add something.
Absolutely.
So yeah, nobody's going to force you for your personal growth or even career growth, but obviously there are expectations. They want you to succeed as well, because you succeed, company succeeds, company makes more money. They're able to sell your services to bigger clients and ask more money and get more profit. It's a for-profit business at the end of the day, right? They have to make money. That's the whole point. So if you're not, nobody's forcing you, but if you're not doing anything for your career growth or your personal growth, there's a question mark. So when a company says, take the time you need to grow, use that. Definitely don't feel a hiccup that, oh, they'll think I'm not working enough. You are working, you're working very hard, but you also have that opportunity, that benefit, and that confidence from your employer that you will grow, and that will not affect the work you're doing. So use that. Do not be afraid of it.
Yeah, I just want to add kind of like onto that, like with the personal growth. I think like one kind of like good way to like, I guess like just like keep track of like your worth is just to like, as you work on projects, like be aware of like the impact it's having. Like Geshan had some really good advice before with like the XYZ on your resume. So I think like as you're working on projects, it's good to kind of like keep track of what kind of impact it's had and like go and look into it. Don't just, I've done this now and just like forget about it. I guess that's like all useful stuff that you can like place on your resume later.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for those responses. Well, that was all the like submitted questions. So we'll actually open the floor to any on the spot questions. So does anyone have, oh, okay, we got one.
That was quick.
Yeah.
I know my question.
Yeah, so I've been working for like 15 years plus operations, office manager, practice manager kind of roles, but now I want to pivot into data because it's always been an element of my job, but it's never been the main focus of my job. How should I be setting my expectations to land a role in a data analytics type role? Because I obviously don't want to go for something that's junior because that's also a massive pay cut. What should I be expecting?
When you career transition like that from an area from non-tech to tech, unfortunately, you have to expect a pay drop. That's
I do
reality.
work in tech, but I just don't do the tech.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like, I don't know, I haven't seen your CV, so it's hard to advise exactly to see where the transferable skills are, but highlight that on your CV.
Yeah.
Whatever transferable, whatever related stuff you've done, and also make sure you call out in your career profile that you are transitioning and you are looking for a full-time role in as a data analyst or whatever it is, and make sure it's really salient, all the work you've been doing and all the study, all the side things, projects, whatever it is that you've contributed to or done, make sure that's really like apparent in your CV. Yeah. And then try to just, a really big tip here, and you can do this whether you're career transitioning or not, or you're not quite sure, you've got all these tech opportunities, do I do cyber, do I do front end? Just reach out to people on LinkedIn that are already in the jobs you want. Find a data analyst, for example, in a company you want to work for. Hey, I know this might seem random, but like I'm wondering if you'd be open to a 10-minute Zoom chat, virtual coffee. I would just love to pick your brains and understand how you got to where you were. I tell you what, 90% of people will probably respond. They'll be so flattered. And they love talking about themselves. So if you're just asking for 10-minute virtual Zoom coffee, do it. You'll probably get a really good response rate. And guess what? That becomes your network. And you could be like, oh, by the way, I'm looking for a data analyst role. Do you know anyone that's hiring? Or can you introduce me to someone in your network that might be able to help me on my journey? Yeah. So that's a really good tip there.
Awesome. Thank you.
Just one more thing. Yep. This might be helpful. This was great advice from you as well, Pam. You have your old experience, right? Your old identity of operations, practice, and everything. You add that there, but try to keep it relevant to what you want to do next. So that's your new identity. And above that experience, you have another layer, basically another paragraph where you say data analytics or data analyst. I'm not sure what you wanted to do. Aspiring data analyst or the aspiring data analytics person. And then underneath you list exactly what you have been doing so far. I've started taking courses in X, and I've created dashboards in Tableau. I've, looking at Power BI. But you need to understand exactly what skills you need, right? So it could be SQL that you need there. Yeah, done. Exactly.
I'm doing all the training already.
Yeah, you're doing all the training. Yeah. Are you also then showing what you're doing in form of reports? Are you doing that as well?
I haven't got a portfolio together.
That's what you need to do as well. So at least there is a proof of, hey, she actually understands and she knows how to build these reports. Yeah. So that could be also useful for you.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I just firstly want to thank you guys for giving such detailed responses, and it's been quite insightful for us as well. I just had a question for Pam and Eli. In the recruitment, outside of the technical aspect, in the recruitment and interview process, what are a few things as a recruiter that you look for that make people stand out to you and also be like that immediate yes, as you said before? Yeah.
Personality. So your presence, like maybe a warmer tone, friendly. And then your motivations, your why. Okay, why this role in particular, why this company, why now? Your communication style, that's the most obvious thing. We've mentioned that quite a bit now, but it is super, super important. You can actually do online courses to brush up any soft skills stuff, or do mock interviews, just mock prep with people to make sure that's correct. What else makes someone stand out? I don't know, Eli, what do you think? Beyond tech skills, yeah.
So our technical folks were talking about projects and impactful projects and recording those projects. So if you are already in a job, let's assume you're already doing a software engineer position, try to work on projects that are going to be huge in impact. And that's going to get you, that's almost like the currency for you to get another job in the future. big rocks versus small rocks. And that's something I'm learning myself at the moment as well. Like I have so many ideas, I want to do so many things, but are they all good ideas and are they going to move the needle, right? So that could be something that really differentiates you from other people, because you have now way better impactful lines, right, in your resume versus someone else. So that's something personally that I would really do if I was you.
Yeah, and we love it if people are like writing blogs as well. Maybe you could do that in your spare time and put yourself out there a little bit, just start. Maybe you're involved in meetups and organising things or whatever it is. All the extracurricular stuff really makes someone stand out as well as their soft skills.
And last thing that I want to add, and this was really important for me, you can do everything under the plan. Like, you can do all the advice that we have shared today and still not get the job. Because it's timing, luck, mood of the person that you're interviewing with. So it's okay. One door closes, somewhere else there's another open. So that's all right.
That's absolutely correct, guys. You've got to have that resilience.
Yeah, without it.
We have had numerous doors close on us in our own job search journeys. So it's about finding that one place. Like, your value doesn't diminish just because someone can't see it. Okay, you've just got to find that place that sees your value, sees that spark, and will hire you. And it's out there for everyone. So just numbers game.
Cool. This is a bit more of a technical perspective and a technical question. So as a developer and someone who's got experience, well, for me, I've got experience in web development and I've done a few jobs there, but I'm now interested in moving into like mobile development roles. But I'm just wondering how I curate the application process maybe, or curate my resume and show the relevant experience. Because I hear a lot of advice about curate the resume specifically for the role and show only mobile development stuff for that role, for example. What's the balance there of showing my old web dev work, and how can I don't know, transition a bit smoothly, I guess?
Maybe you have some good advice.
Mobile developer.
First thing that comes to my mind, as Pam mentioned, look for the transferable skills. Web development is software engineering, mobile development is also software engineering. Doesn't matter what language you work on, concepts remain the same, if else remains the same, switch cases remain the same. At the heart of it, you're still doing the agile methodology, you're still doing Scrum and everything. So look for those transferable skills. Maybe if you've got some experience in some data kind of things, or just understanding different kinds of things like JSON and things like that, highlight those. Look at what your potential employer is looking for. Scan through the job description, pick out the keywords, transfer them. That's my biggest tip I can give you. Like, you have to show them that I'm doing similar things in a different domain. That's all. Yeah. I can just take those skills and put them here, and I'm perfectly capable of doing that.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you.
I think another thing that you could do, just as you're like on the side, you could like have like a side project, and in that way you can use that to like develop some of the skills that you're like seeing like across the different jobs, and that way you can kind of like match it up so that like when you get into the interview process, like the recruiter can see, oh, okay, so he hasn't been doing this in his like current role, but I can see that he's still like developing this skill like on the side.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think always list it. And early on in your career, you're not going to have, maybe you will, because I didn't when I graduated from UNSW. I didn't have much experience. I didn't do internships. I did all the wrong things. But I remember like someone told me this, and it's true. Like, you should still list, if you were a shop assistant at XYZ, like I used to be a supervisor at Harris Farm Markets, like a checkout chick, and I put that on there. But what I emphasized was the transferable communication skills, the soft skills, all those things that I built. You don't need to harp on about it, but it's still important to list in terms of the soft skills or whatever transferable skills you've got that are relevant for that role. So don't feel like you need to completely cut out anything that's non-specific to the exact career direction you want. Now, obviously, as you get more experience, let's say you picked like a front-end engineer, as you get more experience, you can just slide those off your CV. But initially, when you apply and you maybe don't have a whole heap of internships and work experience behind you, it's okay to put that stuff on there. It's fine. It's great.
Yeah, I totally agree. When I was like applying like out of uni, I had a bunch of like, I guess like retail jobs as well. But I think like thinking back, like in hindsight, I think like a lot of those like communication skills are like very relevant because like once you do get into engineering, you feel like, oh, actually it's mostly still like communication, right?
Yeah.
So I think like a lot of those like soft skills you can like emphasize, and also like Kartik mentioned, like conflict resolution. You know, that's like a great like skill to have. And also just like, you know, I think Pam mentioned it before, but like just being like adaptable, like working with like unknowns. Those are all like really great skills like you keep using.
I've got 2 questions, if that's okay. So the first one's for our recruiters. What can we do to make your life as easy as possible?
Start with the resume, and then we've talked about that already quite a bit, but make sure that your resume is nice and cleanly structured, easy to read. That's the best thing that you can do for yourself and for the recruiter. Highlight exactly what we want, and don't have too much on there that's not relevant. That's really the best that you can really do there, in my opinion.
Yeah, and don't write a covering letter.
Yeah, don't waste your time there. It's stupid.
The only time I would suggest write a cover letter, your career transitioning, and we need some more context that your CV can't provide. We want to get a little bit more info, make it brief. And if you're going to do a cover letter, you have to tailor it to the exact role you're applying to. Find the job requirements, what skills the role advert says they're looking for. And I saw a great cover letter recently. They dot pointed the skill set from the job advert and exactly how their experience matched. Oh, made my life easy, thank you. So make it brief, make it relevant if you're going to do it. But generally these days, we actually don't really read covering letters. Some people are sneaky and they put it in at the beginning when they attach their CV.
That annoys me.
That annoys you? It annoys me only if it's not tailored. If it's like to Sir Madame, I mean, hello, if you didn't take the time to like at least find out who was hiring or write talent team or do something a little bit more specific and tailor it, I'm not going to read it, and it actually makes you look probably worse than anything. So if you're going to take the time, like I said, there's probably those 2 scenarios, but keep it brief, make sure it's relevant to the role. But like we said though, we rarely read them. It's generally not asked for these days, but if it is, just remember those tips.
Excellent, thank you for that. And this is a question for everyone on the panel. What's the best piece of career advice that you've received that you don't think enough people follow or listen to?
Nice question.
Yeah.
Please.
There's this really senior principal consultant in our company, probably over 20, 25 years of experience. And I vividly will always remember this sentence he said, famous last words. Like, and this was when I was a junior back then. I was working with him. And I had the opportunity of coming up with a solution, designing it for the Android app, and you know, all the things that happened, and taking care of things that could go wrong. Obviously did not have a lot of experience, so I did not check a lot of things that I should have in hindsight. I said a few things, and his comment was famous last words. And he was so right. He was absolutely right. Had I gone to the path that I was thinking, the app would not have worked. In fact, the scale of the app was massive, so it would have actually backfired. So yeah, like if you're thinking of something and you think things can go wrong, recheck them. If you think you have taken care of or mitigated those things, think again. Keep thinking, unless you're tired of hearing yourself saying famous last words.
Okay. I think for me, this is probably something I learnt from consulting, but I would say under-promise and over-deliver. I would say that's probably a good piece of advice. I think for consulting, because you're dealing with clients, but I think even if you move into like other like roles, I feel like specifically engineering, there are a lot of different problems that arise. So I think it's better to like overestimate a little bit, and like that way it keeps like, I guess, like your stakeholders kind of like still on track, and you're like mitigating for like any like accidents that could happen on the way.
I got this pretty early on in my career. I was a little bit too ambitious, I'll admit that. And my manager sat me down, he's like, Pam, you're young, no offense, but you're young, and I was. And he's like, you should chase experience, not money, and it's true. I was asking for this way big pay rise out of proportion. Anyways, it wasn't, and the point is, like, when you're at this phase, you've got to chase the experience first. When you get that learning, maybe it takes you 5 to 7 years to become a senior, for example. Then you chase the money, okay? Not the other way around. I do see it a fair bit. I feel like it's a little bit of entitlement sometimes, and I had it, okay? Like where I go just, some people just want to ask the world, but like do your research, know your worth. There is a lot of free sources, ask people, ask recruiters, ask your friends, figure out what is the right market rate for whatever role you're applying to, but don't try to go in there asking for 30K above that when you don't have the experience to show for it. So really be realistic here. The other second advice I can give too. So I think start before you're ready. So like, just say yes to you're going to get a lot of opportunities. Say yes, try to get involved in as much as possible and trust that you will figure it out along the way, that you've got the skills, just back yourself. So, and if you do that, you'll find you can make pretty quicker leaps in your career progression through saying yes to a lot of opportunities, through just making a start and knowing that you've got yourself and you'll figure it out.
Nice. I was going to say that too, actually. I learned this after being, employed for a few years now. Finding someone that is actually a good mentor, a good manager, that has your interest, your career, your advancement as priority for themselves as well. And that's really hard. And a good way to do that is through the interview process, where you ask certain type of questions to really assess what kind of person they are maybe. It's not always easy. You will not get these signals because you need to work with them, but do your homework, maybe check Glassdoor, just be very careful for who you work and what kind of culture they have, because that's going to really determine your career trajectory. So I think that's a really good tip that I would advise people.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, my one's like a short, specific question. I was just wondering, if you have a job that you've got but haven't started yet, it's an upcoming role, should you include that in your resume? Like if you're starting it next month, but you're applying for a job that's at the end of the year, for example?
So you already have a job?
No, I'm going to start it next month.
You're going to start next month?
Yeah.
But you're going to apply for another role?
It's like an internship kind of thing, so it's not like a full-time job, if that makes sense.
But you're applying for internship for next...
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I would add it. If I was you, I would do it. I would add the job that you already have, which is great. It shows, okay, you're already getting the experience, and now you're applying for another internship. Maybe have another, in the summary, hey, I know I have a job already, but I want to work for you in 6 months' time, just why I'm applying. It's just a caveat, maybe. I never had this experience, so.
Yeah, I think it depends. As long as there's no conflict of interest. Like if you've already got a job and it's part-time, specify that. And
Yeah.
if it's like a part-time gig and it's not going to be your main full-time job that you're applying to, yeah, fine, list it. But if you've accepted an offer at a company and then you're going to, it's going to be your other main gig or whatever like that, that looks weird. So don't do that. But
Thank you.
A lot of the job applications, the forms that we fill out have questions like why this company or what skills do you bring to the table. When I write those, I can literally just go onto the website and just see what the company's about, write the skill sets that they're looking for, just write it into my application, right? How do you distinguish between people who are just writing things off of, just already information available, or people who actually have that sort of skill set?
Yeah, I don't ask those questions at the beginning. I feel like I wouldn't ask someone to write all that in. I'd take the time to call them if I like their CV, first of all. I wouldn't do it like that. But in that case, I would say if I was a recruiter doing that and reading the responses, I think you just have to have it well written, punchy, concise, all the same principles that we've shared before. Use ChatGPT for some of your answers if you like, and obviously tweak it, make it relevant. But yeah, the answers are there in the job advert and the website. So just, well structured, no typos, concise. Anything else?
But if you would do that, what you said, that's you would yourself maybe say, hey, this is just copy paste, man. What's this?
Yeah.
Gone. But if you say, for example, they're asking for a specific skill, Java, let's say, you could say, hey, I've written X number of lines in Java, or I am a contributor at GitHub on Java project, blah, blah, blah. That's a good proof of your skill. So if you're going to spend your time writing that, write something like that with the proof and evidence.
Yeah, put the data in there, show your impact. Start with an active verb as well,
Yeah,
with
active
everything
verbs
on
are
your
good.
CV. Really, really important.
Look it up.
Yeah.
Look it up. Google
You don't know what
active
it is?
verbs.
Yeah, Google it.
It's good.
Led, created, implemented.
Spearheaded.
Spearheaded. Oh, wow, that's really aggressive. And then motivations is your chance to shine, right? Like I said before, know your why, make it personal. Don't just say what everyone else is going to say. Like, think about it.
Yeah, think about it.
Make it different. You'll stand out.
Thank you.
But you have to be lucky again, right? There could be like 100 applications. I'm not going to see yours because I already have 5 in the process.
Yeah.
Again, be quick. When you see a job ad, be quick.
And to be honest, a recruiter will probably look at your CV for 6 seconds first and then look at your responses. So still, CV is king.
Yeah.
Hello. So my question is like, how do you change the tide of the conversation? So last year, I applied for Genius Bar in Apple. They interviewed me at phone, and the conversation was going really well. So, and I was almost sure that I was going to get the job, but the thing that changed the situation was they asked me, what visa are you on? And I said student, and they were like, and I knew that I was going to get rejected anytime sooner. But thinking back, that I wish I could have done something that I could stand against them so that I could turn the situation in my favor and still could get the job. And I know I researched some of them, and there are some people who are like me as a student, but they are still working in Apple Genius Bar. So my question is, when you think the conversation is going in the opposite direction, how do you change the situation in your favor, and how do you do that so that you can get the job?
So they do hire people on student visas, but they told you that was the reason they wouldn't hire you at the end of the interview. Is that what happened?
Yeah, yeah, they were just like, when I said I was on student visa, they were like, So yeah, I just wanted to know, like, how do you change the situation in your favor so that even if you think you are going to get rejected, you want to do your best so that they will appreciate you and you can still get the job?
All right, really quickly, I would have asked the recruiter for more specific feedback and said, hey, I'm aware that there are people that you have hired that have student visas, so can you please tell me, is there another reason why I wasn't considered further? I would really appreciate the constructive feedback, okay? Then you can learn from it, because I'm telling you that obviously wasn't the student visa, but the recruiter was lazy and just gave that as the reason, as an excuse, okay? So there was other feedback there, they just didn't want to tell you. So ask for it, okay? Really important, everyone, by the way. If you don't get an interview, or even if you proceed, your recruiter or whoever it is that's managing the process for you and giving you that feedback, ask them. Tell me, like, what went well, tell me why I'm proceeding, I'd love to know more, or if I'm not proceeding, could you please give me the feedback, I'd love to learn. And that also puts you in a really good position. We're most likely to talent pool you for the future if you have that really nice growth mindset and you accept the feedback well. Another thing you could have done in that situation, if you feel like an interview, maybe you're not quite sure how it's going in the moment, you're like, oh God, do they like me, do they not? A really good tip, question time, okay? At the end of the interview, ask the interviewer, hey, based on what I've shared today, have you any reservations moving forward? Like, what are your thoughts? Just see what they say. And if they say, oh, you know, I was probably hoping I had someone who had a little bit more experience with X. And if you've had that experience, that's your chance to counter and go, bam, well, I actually didn't have a chance to mention, but I actually have experience in that, right? We just didn't have a chance to cover it. So then you leave the interviewer with no doubt that actually, oh yeah, you've probably, you actually do have everything. So it's a really good way to just kind of get a checkpoint. Or maybe they'll say, maybe in that moment, they might even give you the direct feedback and say, look, unfortunately, just not quite strong enough in these areas relative to who we've spoken to so far. So then you're not left in a limbo, but you kind of know where you stand when you ask that question.
Thank you.
I got one. Just speaking to when you're reviewing applications, say you're getting several hundred applications for a particular role. When you are reviewing these, do you start as soon as the applications start flooding in, or do you start reviewing the applications after the end due date, do you feel?
You go.
Because that could very much influence
Interested?
Yeah.
Okay.
Influence
Okay.
quite a lot
Okay.
of bias
I'll keep
towards the
this in
start.
mind.
I think it depends on the company and the person reviewing them. I always liked, to review the resumes as they came in, because that worked with my workflow. So that's me. I know that some of my colleagues, they have a day where they review resumes. So a bunch of them come in, and then I review 100 of them on the same day, and then make my own decision. It's a bit like, not a straight answer. Depends.
I would say it does depend, but generally speaking, as a general rule of thumb, the earlier you apply, the better.
The better, yes.
Generally speaking, the role is probably urgent, that's why we're hiring. And so we will be looking at the initial ones. However, really important, okay? Don't be put off if it's like 2 days to go and you see hundreds of applications from LinkedIn. Still apply. And that is the biggest mistake people make. They think, oh, I'm not good enough, there's already all these people, I'm not going to get it. Honestly, I can have 200 applications and only the last one who applied on the last day is correct. Okay? Still apply. Do not be put off. Okay? It's your own game, all right? So don't worry about the number. Like many times, they're still not right. So please still apply, even if it's at the cutoff. And even if you notice something had expired, let's say you save the job, you go back into it, oh crap, it's gone. That's why when you find a job you like and you're still touching up your CV, you haven't hit apply yet, you've got a few days, save it, find out who the recruiter is, so then you can still message the recruiter direct. Even after it's closed, we'll generally still keep accepting applications unless we've already started hiring and it's too late. So sometimes, we usually post a roll-up for a month. It can happen within the first 2 weeks. We get such a good response of candidates, we start interviewing, and we already have 10 interviews lined up. And unless you're absolutely exceptional, we probably wouldn't have any more unless that cohort doesn't make it. But still apply, because many times they actually don't make it sometimes. And so we then go back to our list and go, okay, do we need to re-advertise, or do we have some other late applicants that were really good we can consider? So still apply as early as possible, still apply even if it's late. Find the recruiter or the hiring manager and reach out just in case, even if the advert is expired.
Hi guys. So my question is around, can you give us some LinkedIn tips so that we are in a recruiter's radar?
Yeah. Open to work. But I'll be curious to hear your thoughts, Eli. I personally don't like seeing the green open to work banner. Okay, so there's a way on LinkedIn where you can publicly show you're open to work with the green banner on your profile pic. I don't like it because it feels a little bit desperate in my view, and a lot of, I know my talent acquisition friends feel similar. What you can do, and the best thing to do, is you can do the silent one where you just tick open to work of the types of roles you're interested in, remote or whatever, and we automatically can search you when you put that you're open subtly. But what do you think?
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I think about it. But, some people are desperate, so you want to make yourself visible as much as possible. So in those cases, I would definitely recommend doing that. But you need to ensure that your resume, your LinkedIn profile is also up to date. That you don't just have the job and title, you also have a description below that. Because if I search for certain type of keywords, you'll be found. Otherwise, you're not. Update your picture. Have a good picture in there. You have a good phone. Take a selfie. I mean, not in a t-shirt, not in a pajama, but normal t-shirt, right? So you want to make sure that you have that. Try to keep your LinkedIn profile up to date, right? So keep it nice and shiny. What is the latest thing that you have done? Just keep it, fresh.
And when we're searching for you, we're literally searching software engineer and Python and, okay, these are keywords. So you need to list your tech on your profile so that, and the more you list it for relevant in context to each role, the more chance you have of being seen in the first page or the first few pages that we look through. Recommendations, really good. So people that you've worked with on certain projects, whether it's at uni or whatever, can vouch for your soft skills and technical skills. Get them to write your LinkedIn recommendation. You can return the favor.
Even students, like, I think you are students at the moment, so you could ask each other, hey, give me a recommendation. We worked on a project together. Just write me something where it talks about my tech skill, my soft skill, and how I collaborated with you on the project. Great idea. I would do that.
Yeah. And show off your personality in the about me. Like, that's a cool thing to go, like, hey, I'm into this. And you can also say, I'm an avid, like, I love avocado toast or whatever it is. Like, you could
Star
also
Wars.
put Star Wars or some, that's very cliche.
People like it.
But whatever it is you're into, like, you can also list your interests, like, make it stand out. And, make sure that under your roles, it's like your online CV, LinkedIn, okay? So, like, again,
that's right.
Like XYZ formula, dot points, okay, keep it brief under each role held. Just give us the highlight impacts with data. What did you do in that role? And make sure you list your tech.
Yeah, I would say that since, like, if you're a student and you feel like you don't have many, I guess, like, technical things to add, like, what you can do is also, like, just pull from your uni, like, projects, like, if you're in any, like, societies, or even if you do, like, a hackathon, you can say, like, I explored, like, this tech and, like, I'm interested in this and, all those things. And I feel like at least the keyword search would match up. So
Should you remind me of something? HackerRank and LeetCode. Spend energy and time if you're a software engineer on that, because you should have a profile and you get a rating there as well. If you have a good rating, that's really good evidence again. So, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, invest time and energy into that as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can I just quickly ask a follow-up on that? Like, LinkedIn, I know, like, a lot of recruiters just look at your LinkedIn, like, as the first thing they do. I don't know if that's true or not. But you also mentioned that LinkedIn is kind of like an online CV. So apart from the fact that the difference is that one is virtual and one is, like, tangible, what else do you think is different between LinkedIn and, like, a CV?
Picture. Put your picture on LinkedIn, not your CV. Ideal, unless you're going for a modelling job where your looks are important. You want people to focus on your actual skills that's relevant for the role rather than your looks, okay? And it opens up bias where you don't need to. But LinkedIn, it's fine. It's good to put a professional shot up there. And generally, like, to answer your question, I would probably look at a CV first and then go to the LinkedIn profile. If I like the look of the CV, I'll always go to the LinkedIn.
Me too.
And the other thing I would do is, if I didn't get enough good direct applicants, and sometimes in tandem with putting up an advert, I would also be searching LinkedIn and headhunting on keywords to find your profiles. So then I would also be directly looking at your LinkedIn only at that point. And if I like you, I'll reach out and ask for your CV if you're interested in the role.
You can be more creative as well, I think, on LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn.
Yeah, you can add more personality into it as well. I think resume might be a bit more standard, but LinkedIn can have emojis and certain types of, I guess, ways of expressing yourself. Yeah.
You can even add in, like, a voice sort of
Yeah.
recording. It's like, hi, my name's Claire. And they can, like, hear what you sound like before they even start talking to you. But yeah, there's, like, a lot of cool tips and tricks on LinkedIn. Does anyone else have any other questions? Oh, yep.
Yeah, sorry, I've got one more. I'm very used to the application process. Been applying for quite a few. I'm wanting to know what it's like in the reverse direction. How often do you actually go to LinkedIn and consult LinkedIn and look for people as opposed to them coming to you with a CV? Is this a very common practice nowadays?
Yeah. So for more junior positions or, like, entry level, we get enough of a direct response. We don't have to go headhunting, because that's a lot of time on us to go headhunting and sourcing on LinkedIn. But for mid to senior level, like technical positions, like, I would always, probably that's one of my first port of calls. In addition, the advert's just there, but I generally don't get the best response because, you guys are gainfully employed at that point by the time you're mid to senior. So then we'd probably spend more time headhunting.
All right, thank you. And just a follow-up one. How much of an impact does it make if someone regularly updates their LinkedIn? Do you go through and look, what have they been posting the last month? Are they active here? Does this play a role?
I believe the more active you are and posting on people's comments, like connecting, go hit connect with people, okay? But the more active you are on LinkedIn, the more likely you are to, I think, show up in, like, search results as well, because your profile's been, you have to have it filled out actually list your skills. Like there's a section to list your skills. The more filled out your profile is, the more discoverable you are. So it does make a difference. But you don't have to be like, I would always suggest to engage on posts, particularly because then you can kind of show off your subject matter expertise. And sometimes I hire people if I like people that have written good blogs, if they're commenting good comments, I will look at them. Hiring manager will send me profiles and go, hey, I saw this comment from this guy. I clicked into their profile. They actually might be right for our role here. So it's like a pull tactic, okay? Don't just think about push, which is I'm going to apply to a role. Think about drawing us to you. How do you draw attention to yourself? You build your personal brand. You grow your networks. You get out there like you're doing today. And so think about using a push and a pull strategy when it comes to your job search.
Okay, I think we'll just end the questions there. So much great info from these 4 panelists. So can we just give them a big round of applause? Oh, did we have one more question? Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't see that.
Like nowadays, many companies use AI to scan the resume. So what do you recommend to pass the AI scanning, and how many keywords should I include in the resume to pass the AI scanning?
Sorry, everyone's looking at me.
Talked enough.
So I think the AI's job is to find out when we get 100 applications, which ones are the most closest to the criteria that I already set into the system, and then I get a match. So if you have the right keywords in your resume that you can prove that you actually have, right? That's a good thing. So then you will get a good match, and you will be put forward to the next round, hopefully, from the system, right? Yeah. So that's the answer, I think.
So, you guys go.
I guess this is more of a question, but I guess like as you're a student, sometimes you don't like fully fit into those like skills. I would say still like put your CV in, but what do you guys think if you don't fully like 100% match those skills that are listed?
Yeah, like you can still apply for a role even if you don't 100% match all the qualifications. However, I would pay attention. If it's a required skill, you must tick those boxes, otherwise don't bother applying. If you match the required skills and you have a couple of desired, even better. But I would say you do have to meet the minimum requirements. However, when it comes to some people on adverts would say minimum requirement, 4 years of experience as a software engineer. And if you have like 2 years or 3 years, still apply. Because the amount of times hiring managers like get it wrong, and I still present people regardless of the years, like I still, give or take 2 years or whatever's mentioned, it's fine. Like still try your luck. You may not get it, but you might if you've got other standout elements that can offset those years. It's not always the most important thing.
But is there a specific number of keywords?
No, don't worry about that too much.
Don't worry about that. I would say on the AI side of things, it's generally the bigger companies that have money to invest in an AI screening tool up front. I don't. Do you guys have it at Atlassian?
We are going to implement it. Okay,
so I've got a question for you. They're about to implement it. So I've always thought that it's best to have a Word format CV because it's easier for our ATSs to read. Like when we keyword search our ATS, our applicant tracking system, where we get all the CVs, it's better to have Word format rather than PDF because PDF can get missed in a search. It just happens to be the case. But maybe the AI tools are more advanced these days. I'm not sure, it remains to be seen. But if you want to be on the safe side of being searchable, I would go for a Word format CV for sure. Even though PDF can look prettier.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would have advised the opposite, go with PDF, because that's more safe with a wide range of tools. So that's why I would say that.
Thank you.
And yeah, just on the AI side, like obviously get the keywords from the advert, but look at the title in the advert. So rather than call yourself like developer, if the title is software engineer, maybe just tweak your CV, software engineer. That's a keyword as well, okay? Based on the advert.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, I guess that'll...
Sorry.
Okay, so I had a question about networking. So from like a recruiter's perspective, what would it be that you would be just looking out of a conversation or like looking at another applicant or just someone that you're talking to that's like a uni student in a conversation? Like what characteristics would you want to see?
So are you referring to like an event where I meet you?
Yeah, or just any kind of event
Yeah.
where you maybe meet just university students, or if you're just, I guess, talking over LinkedIn.
In person is much better than LinkedIn, obviously, right? It's the same with, you get a good vibe, right, when you meet someone for the first time. It's the same in work, but also in private, so that applies. On LinkedIn, the chances are very, very slim. It's not slow, slim. Because we are so busy during our day, I literally don't have time to look on LinkedIn and message everyone back. So the chances are very slim. So if you do it, don't expect anything back. It's like the cherry on top. I just do it because I have some time. But I would invest more time into actual meetings where you meet someone in person. I know that graduates get to go to like campuses and you can meet recruiters there. So that's the best thing that you can do. Because then you can actually show your personality to the recruiter and, hey, it's my LinkedIn, there you go. And then you connect with them.
I will say compliments open doors. So in general, so if you see like if you follow recruiters and you follow some of their posts, they usually post a lot of good content for job seekers as well. Write to them, like say, hey, if you want to write to someone, by the way, like open the door with a compliment. Hey Pam, I noticed you did this blog post on this. I found that really engaging. I'd love to chat with you about blah blah blah. That's a really good way to open up a conversation. Just make it warm and friendly from the get go. But I mean, +1 to all of Eli's tips as well. When it comes to in-person events, maybe you have done your research on the speakers prior. Then you can go in with a compliment, or you can go in with, hey, I noticed you work at this, I've looked at the company, I'm really interested in what you guys are up to, can you tell me a little bit more? I'm a software engineer, whatever it is. And also, know your elevator pitch. What is your one sentence, top line? What do you do? What makes you unique? So, I'm not going to give you it, but like, think about it. There's a top liner that you can always have that you memorize that's really cool and engaging and showcases something a little bit different. Maybe you're a software engineer that has created a meetup group on Python or has done a side project that's accomplished X. Think about that and incorporating that in your little elevator pitch so we know instantly we can place you who you are. Probably the frustrating thing I get sometimes when I'm chatting to I guess entry level or graduates or things like that at events is probably more just that I don't know what they do and they don't tell me from the get-go, and I'm like, I would love it if you just introduce yourself, like, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm studying at USyd, I'm studying computer science at USyd, I'm in my final year, then go in with your question so that we can have that context and help with our response. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just gonna cut questions there. Like, you'll have an opportunity to network with these amazing 4 cool tech beans over lunch. So please feel free to hit them up and be like, hey, I have this question. But we have a great lunch prepared. It's rolled and pizza outside. So can we just give one more round of applause to these?
Thank you.
And I think we can start heading out for lunch. So there's exits on both sides, so please feel free to get up and grab some food.